On a tiny island in the Pacific, the most valuable piece of money ever made sits at the bottom of the ocean. No one can see it, no one can touch it, and everyone on the island agrees it is still money. This is the island of Yap, and for centuries, its people used stones, some taller than a man, heavier than a car, as their money. It sounds primitive. It is anything but. These islanders understood something about money that most of us still get wrong today. Because the money in your pocket, the number in your bank account, the gold in a vault, all of it works for exactly the same reason these stones did. Yap just makes it impossible to ignore. They are called rai, discs of crystalline limestone, carved smooth, with a hole cut through the middle so a pole could be threaded through to carry them. The smallest are the size of a saucer. The largest stands 12 feet across, taller than a basketball hoop, 20 inches thick, and weighs around 4 tons, heavier than a car, carved from solid stone. Saucer to 4 tons, one material, one shape, and a value that had almost nothing to do with size. Because here is the first strange thing about rai. There is no limestone on Yap, not a scrap of the right kind. Every single stone had to come from somewhere else, across open ocean. The stone came from Palau, a chain of islands more than 250 miles away. To get it, Yap's men sailed there in outrigger canoes, navigating by the stars, the swells, and the flight of birds, with no instruments at all. Then came the hard part. With shell tools and fire, they quarried the limestone and carved the great discs by hand, a labor that could take months, far from home, in another people's land. Then they had to bring it home, a multi-ton disc, lashed to canoes and rafts, hauled back across hundreds of miles of open Pacific. And the sea did not always let them. Storms swallowed canoes whole. Men drowned bringing this money home. Every large stone on Yap was, in a real sense, paid for in danger and sometimes in lives. And that is exactly where its value came from. A rai was not precious because limestone is rare, it isn't. It was precious because of what it cost to make, the voyage, the months of labor, the risk, the story behind that particular stone. The harder a stone was to bring home, the more it was worth. Cost, risk, story, scarcity, sound familiar? It is exactly why gold became money and exactly why a Bitcoin is hard to mine. Difficulty is the point. But the truly brilliant part of Yap's money was not the stone, it was what they did once it arrived, because a 4-ton disc is almost impossible to move, so mostly they didn't move it. When a stone changed hands to settle a marriage, a debt, a dispute, it simply stayed where it was. What changed was everyone's understanding of who now owned it. The whole community remembered. The island itself was the record book. No coins moved, no paper, no vault. Ownership was a shared memory, a ledger held in the minds of an entire people. Everyone knew which stone belonged to whom and how it had passed down over generations. A public record of who owns what, agreed on by everyone, that no single person can secretly rewrite. We have a modern word for that idea, a blockchain. Yap had it 1,000 years early. Which brings us back to the stone beneath the waves. Generations ago, a crew was bringing home an especially large and beautiful rai when a storm struck, and the stone was lost. It sank to the bottom of the sea. But the men who survived all agreed on how big it was, how fine, how hard won, and so the island decided the stone was real. Its owner was simply as rich as if it stood in his own village. The fact that no one could ever see it again changed nothing. Think about how strange that is, and then think about how normal it is. The money in your bank is not gold in a drawer. It is a number, a shared agreement that you own it. You almost never see it. You trust the record. Yap's sunken stone is your bank balance made of rock. The object was never the point. The agreement was always the point. Then in 1871, the modern world arrived, shipwrecked on Yap's Reef. His name was David O'Keefe, an Irish-American sea captain. The islanders saved his life, and he saw an opportunity in their stone money. O'Keefe had iron tools and big western ships. He offered to help the Yapese quarry rye faster and carry them home in his steel-hulled vessels. In exchange for the coconut and sea cucumber he could sell for a fortune in Asia. It worked. Stones that had once cost months of danger could now be made quickly and safely. The number of rye on Yap exploded, from rare and treasured to many thousands. And here is the lesson, the same one Rome learned with its silver coins. When money becomes easy to make, it becomes worth less. The Yapese knew it instantly. A stone hauled by O'Keefe's ship was never worth as much as one their ancestors had bled for. So they kept two values for two kinds of money. The old, hard-won stones stayed precious. The new, easy ones were discounted. They had invented, on a Pacific island, the idea of inflation and resisted it. A few decades later, Germany took control of Yap. The new rulers wanted the islanders to build roads, and the islanders saw no reason to. So the Germans found a weapon that only works against stone money, a little black paint. They marched from stone to stone and painted a black cross on each one, declaring that this rye now belonged to the government. They never moved a single stone. They didn't have to. A mark was enough to make the island feel suddenly poor. The roads were built fast, and when the work was done, the Germans simply wiped the crosses away, and everyone was wealthy again. Ownership had changed twice, and not one stone had moved an inch. If that sounds absurd, consider what the United States did in 1932. To pay France, the New York Federal Reserve did not ship any gold across the ocean. It went into its own vault, took bars off one shelf, and labeled them France. The gold never left the building. Only the label changed. The great economist Milton Friedman noticed this and said it was exactly the same thing the Yapese did with their stones. A modern superpower and a Pacific island running the identical trick. Ownership is just a mark everyone agrees to honor. Today the giant stones still rest where they have stood for centuries, beside paths and homes, quiet, mossy, and still owned. Yap uses dollars now, but the rye never fully stopped being money because money was never really about the stone. The stone at the bottom of the sea is still money because everyone agrees it is, and the number in your bank account is money for exactly the same reason. Yap didn't have a primitive idea of wealth. They had the truest one. Money was never the thing. It was always the agreement, and the agreement is only as strong as the people who keep it. If this changed how you see the cash in your pocket, the rest of the channel will too. I'm the measure of treasure. Subscribe, and I'll tell you another.